Tengen was in a nightclub in the entertainment district, looking for a demon. The Backstreet Boys were singing their latest single, Straight Through My Heart, on the stage in front of the audience when he saw a very pale, black-haired, mysterious and attractive woman coming into the club from backstage. Tengen had his eyes on her the entire time as she walked to the bar. He watched as she ordered a cocktail and took a sip from it. He was now really interested. He decided to approach her, so he walked towards the bar and sat down next to her. He gave his most charming smile and looked towards her before talking. "Good evening, miss," he said in a smooth, friendly tone of voice. "If I may ask, what is a beautiful lady like you doing in a place like this, all by yourself?"
The woman turned her head towards him and gave him an interested smile that made his heart skip a beat before she spoke. "Good evening." She took another sip from her cocktail before answering his second question by raising an eyebrow and asking, "How do you know I'm alone, mister?"
Tengen chuckled and looked her in the eyes. "Well, a beauty like yourself can't possibly be here without the company of another. But as far as I can see, you're all alone." He leaned closer to her while saying this, his voice low and smooth. Tengen chuckled again, intrigued by her statement. "Oh really? A beauty like you needs to hunt alone? Are you perhaps hunting me right now, miss?" He teased with a charming smile. He smirked at her reply and leaned even closer until his face was right beside her ear. "Maybe I am, love. And I assure you that I'm the best prey you have ever hunted." Tengen's tone was more low and seductive this time. Tengen gave another cocky smirk. He really found this woman interesting. He pushed his chair back, stood up, offered her his hand and said, "Lead the way, love." Tengen followed her curiously, taking the opportunity to observe her every move. When they were now alone in the back of the club, he looked at her, a hint of curiosity and desire in his voice when he spoke. "What now, darling?" Tengen was surprised at how forward she was, but it only made him more excited. He placed his arms around her waist and pulled her closer as he kissed her back, his lips hungry and wanting. He pulled her even closer until her body was pressed against his. He deepened the kiss and exploringly slid his tongue into her mouth. He let out a little moan as their tongues intertwined. His hands started to roam across her body, caressing her everywhere. He broke away from the kiss and started trailing his lips down her neck, sucking and softly biting her skin every few seconds. He chuckled against her neck, the sound sending hot breath across her skin. "You have no idea how good you taste, love." He then started to slowly push her against the wall behind them. Tengen caught a glimpse of her changing appearance, and his eyes narrowed. He quickly realized that she was a demon, but instead of immediately drawing his swords, he found himself interested. His grip on her tightened and he smiled, a hint of challenge in his voice when he spoke. "What a surprise. So you're not just a beautiful woman, eh?" He smirked, his eyes scanning her body as he continued to speak. "I'm guessing you're a demon, and you were just trying to lure me away to make me your next meal, huh?" He raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her response. "Oh, really? Then what are you, darling?" Tengen's eyes widened in surprise. He didn't expect her answer. "A Dhampir, you say? Interesting." He gently pushed her back against the wall again, trapping her between his body and the wall, his grip on her wrists tightening a bit, while his voice was now dripping with lust. "And are you a dangerous one, love?" He chuckled at her answer. To his surprise, he was enjoying this. In this moment, he didn't feel like he was hunting a demon, but more like he was flirting and bantering with a beautiful woman. "You like the Backstreet Boys, eh? Never took you for such a fan, darling." He raised his eyebrows at her statement, surprised again. He then asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice, "The Backstreet Boys? How are they the villains, love?" He nodded, his expression now serious. "Yes, I've heard of them. Daywalkers are extremely dangerous vampires, right? They can walk and fight in daylight and have greater strength and speed, unlike the usual ones." Tengen looked at her in disbelief and shock, surprised to find that the Backstreet Boys were actually very dangerous vampires. "I had no idea. And you're saying that the Backstreet Boys are all Daywalkers? That they are all vampires?" He stared at her for a moment, his mind racing. It was difficult to accept that his favorite band was actually a group of powerful vampires. So they've been around for centuries then. But why are the Backstreet Boys even here, love? What are they plotting? Tengen's eyes narrowed, and a look of anger appeared on his face when he imagined the Backstreet Boys hurting innocent girls. Those bastards, using their fame and popularity to lure young fangirls into their trap. He gripped her wrist tighter, his voice a low growl when he spoke again. But not on my watch, darling. I'm not letting them hurt any girls tonight. Tengen was intrigued again, this time at her comment about making the Backstreet Boys human. He looked at her, curiosity in his eyes when he spoke. Make them human again? How do you plan on doing that, love? He looked at the syringe, surprise and interest showing in his expression. An anti-vampire serum? So you can use that to make the Backstreet Boys human again? That's incredible. He smirked and pulled her closer to him, his voice low and seductive again when he spoke. You really are full of surprises, darling. He chuckled at her question, his eyes roaming across her face. You can call me Tengen, love, and I'd be more than happy to help you. I'll do anything to put a stop to the Backstreet Boys and their plans for tonight. He smiled at the sound of her name and repeated it softly. Carlissa, a beautiful name for a beautiful girl. He chuckled softly, a hint of arrogance in his voice when he spoke again. And I have to say, I would have never guessed your real age to be 19, darling. You act like a mature and experienced lady. Tengen was once again surprised. 100 years? She looked so young. The fact that she was centuries old almost didn't register. 100 years, huh? That explains your level of maturity. He smirked, pulling her closer again, enjoying the feeling of her body pressed against his. And I thought you were a human at first. You look so young and beautiful for such an old lady. He smiled at her, chuckled, finding her reaction adorable and cute. He leaned in closer, his lips almost touching her neck as he spoke again. You know, it's pretty cute how you can still look young and sexy after centuries. I wonder what your secret is. He hummed in response, his lips now softly pressed against the skin of her neck. He left a trail of kisses up to her ear, speaking in a low, seductive voice. Being a Dhampir definitely has its perks, I see. Best of both worlds, strong and beautiful. He left another kiss behind her ear, his hands roaming across her back, pulling her even closer. It's almost unfair for us mortals, you know? You look like a human, but at the same time, you're so much stronger and you have this aura that makes me want you more every second. He moved his lips back to her ear, whispering against it in a low, sultry voice that sent shivers down her spine. Yes, really. You're driving me insane, love. You have no idea how much I want you right now. Those words were all he needed to hear. He captured her lips in a fierce, hungry kiss, his arms wrapping around her waist tight and pulling her body flush against his. He kissed her passionately, his tongue immediately seeking hers, his hands roaming and gripping her body anywhere they could reach. He pushed her even harder against the wall, trapping her once again between his body and the wall as he deepened the kiss, his hands traveling down to her hips and gripping them tightly. He let out a low growl against her lips and mumbled between kisses. You have no idea how long I've been wanting to do this, love. His hands then began to slowly explore her body, starting with her hips and traveling up to her stomach. He let his fingers dance across her skin, and he mumbled again as he broke the kiss. You're so damn beautiful, love. I want you so bad. He left a trail of kisses down her neck, nipping and sucking at her skin as he continued to roam his hands over her body. He was getting more and more turned on with every passing second, his body getting hotter and hotter. His hand found its way to the sensitive skin of her inner thighs, and he started to gently caress her. His touch feather-light, but still enough to make her shiver. His lips found their way back to her ear, and he whispered huskily between kisses. You like that, love? I can feel you trembling under my touch, and it's driving me insane. He continued to touch her, his hands becoming more daring as they moved over her body, exploring every inch of her. He then started to trail kisses down her collarbone and chest, his movements growing more urgent and desperate. He let out another low growl as he reached the exposed skin of her cleavage, and he mumbled again against her skin. I've never wanted anyone more than I want you right now, love. You're making me so unbelievably crazy. He started to move lower, leaving kisses down her stomach and abdomen, his hands still roaming across her body. He wanted to touch her, to taste her, to feel her. He was getting more and more desperate and heated with each second. He eventually reached her hips and started to kiss and nibble at her sensitive skin there, his hands gripping her hips tighter as he mumbled against her skin. You taste so damn good, love. I could do this forever. He continued to leave a trail of kisses and bites on her skin, his touch growing more intense and greedy with every passing second. He was completely absorbed by her, lost in his desire and arousal. He couldn't get enough of her, and he wanted more. He let out another low growl, his voice thick with lust as he spoke. I want you so bad, love. I need you right now. He gently bit down on her inner thigh, just hard enough to make her shiver, and he mumbled against her skin again. Can I touch you, love? I need to touch every inch of you. His hands immediately complied with her permission and started to caress her more eagerly. One hand stayed on her hip, gripping it tightly, while the other one traveled downwards. Moving closer to the area between her legs, he let his fingers dance across her skin, leaving a trail of goosebumps in their wake. He spoke in a low, urgent voice. You're so damn perfect, love. So beautiful. And you're all mine right now. He moved his hand closer to her sensitive area and started to touch her gently but purposefully, his fingers exploring and caressing her, while his voice came out as a sultry whisper. You like that, love? You like the way I'm touching you? He smirked at her response, satisfied and aroused by her reaction. He continued his touch, his fingers moving with more skill and purpose, wanting to give her the most pleasure possible. You're so damn responsive, love. I want to hear more of those beautiful sounds you're making. He applied more pressure, his touches getting more desperate and needy, as he continued speaking in a low, rough voice. I need to hear more of those delicious moans. Let me hear how much you want me, love.